Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we review and break down films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
Superman.
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 Yeah.
Save
You
us,
ever notice?
Superman.
Have you ever noticed how people in movies are bad at chanting?
Yeah,
And
they
it's like
are.
a thing of just like how they shoot it, that it's like they shoot every individual person in
Yeah.
the crowd who's chanting separately, and they
Mhm.
try to match up their timing, but they don't actually have the crowd chanting in the background
Yeah.
because it would make editing a nightmare. So they
Yeah.
have like extras mouthing the words in the background, and then
Yeah.
they have one actor who's like loved, but then when they in the edit, it's always like the actor, whoever the close-up is on, is always like the crowd's like Superman,
Yeah.
and then the one person who the close-up's on is like Superman, Superman. It's like,
He's off.
like
Yeah.
nobody does that in real life. Like nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The slow claps as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nobody does that. That doesn't happen. But
Doesn't
it's one of
happen.
the movie things. Yeah. Yeah. But they
Yeah,
do.
yeah. We are talking about James Gunn's Superman, the beginning of the new DCU.
Yes.
Today, I think it's a big moment
It is.
in in the year 2025 and in DC cinema history potentially.
Hmm.
Um, we this was a movie that we obviously previewed at the beginning of the year in our episode previewing the
Yes.
biggest films of the year. I went back and checked that out today, and I was
Oh,
like,
good.
"Oh, my." I thought that my prediction had been a little more like skeptical, where I was like, I'm sort of
Yeah.
reserving
Yeah.
because but I said then, I was like, I think I'm really gonna like this movie, and I think that it's gonna cause some controversy among fans because of course it will. And
Hmm.
like, so there
Hmm.
is, I mean, this movie is getting a very strong reception from
Yes.
critics and audiences, but there obviously are, when I look online, there's definitely some people who are like, absolutely not, about a handful of things. There's people
Yeah.
who don't like the symbol, there's people who don't like the dog, there's people who don't like the overall tone
Hmm.
of the James Gunn Superman universe. Um, let me
Yeah.
just ask you. So, if we're doing a new thing on the show here, where we're
Yep.
gonna do like the first 10-ish minutes of the
Yeah.
show is spoiler free. So no spoilers in the first 10 minutes. And if you might just be watching our spoiler free review. But so let me just ask you, starting out here, how are you feeling about Superman?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of really great things about it, but there's a lot of things that maybe it's just like I need to acclimate to it.
Hmm.
Like, it's a very different film than the past superhero movies that we've had. So
And
it's
certainly the past Superman movies that we've had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but specifically, yeah, the Henry
Yeah.
Cavill ones, like, but it's really good, so it's just kind of like, okay, you have to get used to it, you have to know kind of what's coming, and I kinda knew what was coming, but even still, it's kind of like, okay, this is interesting. This is a very interesting, way to take this character, and a lot of the things that I had problems with are more technical than, like, problems with David Corn Sweat. I really
Sure.
liked him. I thought he was
Oh,
great. I think he's a great Superman. He
yeah.
really grows on you.
Mhm.
Like, Henry Cavill just kind of looks like Superman, and just like immediately I was like, I'm on board, man. That dude is like, that guy is Superman because his physique, everything, he looks really, really good.
Right.
David Corn Sweat takes a little bit more, but he's got a lot more of the humanity. And
Mhm.
like, the way that he played the character was really, really good. So I really liked him. I liked the action. It's kind of like in some of one of the big problems I have is that there's really only three characters in the movie. It's Lois Lane, Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor.
Sure.
Everybody else is not a character. They're just there. Um,
I'd give Mr. Terrific a little nod
Oh yeah,
there.
sorry. I should say,
I
okay, four
Yeah.
four characters
Yeah.
because Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
The rest, and I'm thinking of also like some of the tertiary characters, right? Like Perry White and
Yeah.
the other gossip
I
columnist and
felt
like some of
like
these other people's.
I felt like Nathan Fillion did a really good job with the time that he
Yeah,
was given as Guy Gardner.
guy, and he wasn't
Yeah.
he played it well because he's not really supposed to be.
Right.
But it's not like that. Also, like, I don't necessarily want those characters to have much character, but it's just kind of like they're there, and if you took them out of the movie, it would still be the same. Like, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like Perry White just in the other movies has been a little more important, and like
How'd you feel
he's kind
about
of had a little bit more, but
how'd you feel about the like Jimmy Olsen's contribution? Because like
that's,
I
that's,
I felt like that was a pretty funny take on Jimmy
I
Olsen.
I thought it was
Like,
funny. I
yeah.
still don't really get the joke. Like, I
I
feel like I'm missing out on something.
I think the joke is that and I don't know that this is like there's so much in this movie that I felt like was so searingly accurate to the comic books that I read
Yes.
as a kid and
Yes.
to the Saturday morning cartoons that I watched.
Yeah.
And I know that that tone can be jarring for people whose only exposure to this character is through the movies
Right.
because we've never seen that
Yeah.
world in the
Yeah.
movies before. The movies are always pretty pared down to feel more grounded,
Yeah.
and Gunn went like full force into like, no, if you like the
Absolutely.
comics and you like the cartoons, we're giving you all that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Like my brother Anthony said afterward, he was like, well, from the trailers and from the marketing, I expected it to be more serious and more emotional. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, the trailers made it seem like it was going to be more emotional. And I was like, the trailer started with a CGI dog who flies with a cape. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I think that's, in my opinion, that's James Gunn telling the audience, guys, we're
Right.
doing something different this time.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
doing crypto and super robots and, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but anyway, the Jimmy Olsen thing, and
Yeah.
this is where I'm like, I brought up like, this is such a like comic book accurate, cartoon accurate. I don't know if this version of Jimmy Olsen has ever existed in anything other than this James Gunn movie. I
No.
could be wrong, but I felt like the joke was like Jimmy Olsen in this world is the ladies' man of
Yeah.
Metropolis. Like
Yeah.
every woman in Metropolis wants
Yeah.
to hook up with Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. And
And yeah.
yeah, and that was a joke, and you're completely right about the comic book. This is very, very, very comic booky,
Mhm.
and that's not necessarily a bad thing, in some ways. It's just, again, you have to get used to it. But the Jimmy Olsen thing, yeah, like I watched a video, and they're like, "This is very comic accurate." Jimmy Olsen has had so many girlfriends, and he's even dated Lois Lane, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's a thing. But it also felt like an inside joke that I was missing out on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that that kind of like you're
Maybe we're straying into the spoiler territory there. I
I
don't know.
don't know,
I don't
not in
think so.
that.
Yeah,
I
we're just
won't
giving a
spoil.
little.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, and this is also not a spoiler. This is just kind of a generalized uh take on the story. You're dropped kind of in the middle of the story.
Right.
It's almost as if you opened a comic book
Correct.
in part 3 or something like that, and you're
Yep.
just reading. Like,
Yep.
again, that's kind of why some of the characters aren't really characters. That it's like everything has already been established.
Yeah.
So there is no origin story, which I don't think that's a spoiler either, because you can see that he's already established as Superman.
Yeah.
And that's at the very, very beginning of the movie. It
Mhm.
says he's been around for 3 years. Metahumans have been around for 300 years or something. But
Yes.
so it's kind of like, okay, I'm in the middle of this story. It's a little harder to kind of like catch up with the characters. So
Right.
that's like my biggest problem with the movie. Now, having said that, there's a ton of fun stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, go see this in the theater. David Cornsweet is great. Crypto is awesome. Like, there's a lot of really funny scenes, a lot of really fun, exciting scenes. So I mean, I really enjoyed myself. I took my two sons. They loved it too. So it's a really fun time at the theater. I'm excited for where this is going to go, where the rest of the DCU is going to go. So I'm excited. What is your take on it?
So my take on it is I had a similar experience to you the first time I saw it. I've seen it
Yeah.
twice now,
Oh, okay,
and
great.
I plan on seeing it a third and a fourth time.
Nice.
But my first time seeing it, and I've seen this a lot in comment sections too, because I've made a few videos about this on my TikTok page, and I've made a few like
Yeah.
I've been like kind of nerding out for the last week talking about this movie a lot, and I've seen a lot of people be like, my first pass, I thought it was pretty good, and I had a pretty good time. But they're like, but the movie kind of stuck in my head. Like I couldn't stop
Mhm.
thinking about it. And I went back and I absolutely loved it the second time I saw it.
Nice.
And even Chris Stuckman said that. Chris Stuckman's a
Yeah.
reviewer on YouTube that I really like. And his first review was kind of like lukewarm. He did
Mhm.
his spoiler-free review, and he was just kind of like, listen, if you're a fan of James Gunn's style, you're gonna get a lot of that, and you're gonna like that. If James Gunn's style kind of bothers you, then this is probably gonna kind of bother you. And he's like, and I
Yeah.
think he's like, I mostly enjoyed myself here. He's like, but there were probably technical issues I had. And then he did his spoiler review,
Mhm.
and he was like, you know, uh, he's like, "Sometimes when there's a movie I'm really excited to see, I have a hard time taking it all in on the first viewing." He's like, "'Cause I'm really, like, almost, like, tense because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
paying attention to everything that's happening, and I'm trying to take everything in, and I'm not just really, like, letting the movie wash over me."
Right.
He's like, "The second time I watched it because I knew what it was," he's like, "I just got to experience the movie for what it is," and
Right.
he's like, "I just really, really fell in love with the movie."
Mhm.
And we talked about this on Jurassic World Rebirth on our last episode, that it was a movie that when I first saw it, I thought that was fine, and I left the theater. And the more I thought about the movie, the more I disliked it.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
more it just kept like losing points in my head. I just kept being like, ugh, you know, and
Yeah.
just being like, whatever. Like, I don't really care if I ever see that movie ever again. This movie did this weird thing where I was sort of like Chris Stuckman, where I think I was like so kind of tense the first time I watched it, and I wanted to like it so much, and
Yes.
I was enjoying myself on the first watch, but also, like, my family members didn't really like it. Anthony didn't
Yeah,
like it.
yeah.
My brother Adam got up and left at, like, the hour mark, leaned over to me and said, "I hate this," and got up and left, and so I
That's
was
so
kinda sitting
funny.
there like, "Am I wrong? Like, am I just, like, way too into this character?" And so I just sort of had a weird, like, I came home and my dad was like, "Well, what'd you think?" And I was like, I think I liked it." I was like, "But
Yeah.
I don't know." But then in the like, for the next few days, I couldn't get the movie out of my head. Like, I
Mm.
just kept having moments that would pop up and I'd be like, "That was so beautiful. Like, that was
Mhm.
so good." And I was just like, "I gotta go back and see that again." So I went back and watched it a second time. I went by myself and I was like, "I'm just gonna sit in the theater by myself and watch this." And I just was, like, sobbing through this movie,
Mm.
and it ended, and I was like, "Well, that's my favorite Superman movie that's ever been made. I think it's my favorite superhero movie I've ever seen in my life, and I
Okay.
think that it's going to go down in history as one of the best superhero movies ever made." And I've seen a lot of people in my comments be like, "Yeah, my first pass was, like, pretty good." And then I went back and was like, "Actually, kind of a masterpiece." And I was like, "Yeah, I think all the things that you mentioned, I felt on the first pass,
Right.
that there's a lot going on. We're
Mhm.
dropped in the middle, and I kind of was a little bit more prepared for this because I had heard people say, like, you kinda just get dropped into the middle of the story, and for the
Mhm.
first half hour of the movie, you're kind of just taking in a lot of information, and
Mhm.
then it sort of starts you sorta get to lock in and ride a smoother ride for the
Yeah.
remaining,
Yeah.
90 minutes or so. But I and I feel all that, and I think on the first pass, there's so much going on that the 3 characters that stand out the most are Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it feels like those are the only real characters. Going back, I think James Gunn has done such an amazing job at, like, fleshing out even characters that just have a single scene, and I go, "Oh my gosh, that's so right." Like, I know
Mm.
it, and giving that person a fully fledged personality with just, like, a few moments of dialogue. A lot of people I've seen say, "I love the stuff with Ma and Pa Kent. I want more of it." And I go, "I hear you." And especially on the first pass, I was like, "Man, I want
Mhm.
more Ma and Pa Kent there in the middle of the movie." But then I come back to this movie and I'm like, I think that it's enough. Like,
Mhm.
I think we get it. Like, we know who those characters are, and
Yeah.
I love this new version. The way he introduces us to them is so, and we'll get into that with the spoiler part. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna, but there's so many ways he shows us who they are in this world that I'm
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I get you. I get what you're doing, James Gunn."
Mhm.
And, uh, I think that, to me, on the second watch especially, it didn't feel overstuffed or too, like he tried to bite off more than he could chew. To
Yeah.
me, it actually feels like quite streamlined and quite
Yeah.
smooth and quite well balanced. Because I even felt on the first watch a little bit of like, maybe we're going to the comedy too a little too much. Maybe we're undercutting some emotional moments when we shouldn't. And then on the second watch, I was like, no, this actually all feels quite well balanced the way that I feel about his other films, about like the
Mhm.
Guardians films. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
fact, I think that these emotional moments are landing on me even stronger than they do in those films. I personally now feel that this is James Gunn's strongest film. I feel like his vision. To me, it's like, as a lifelong Superman fan, I
Yeah.
don't actually think I've ever seen a Superman movie that fully works. I love all the movies that he's in, even the bad ones.
Mhm.
I even there's things I like about Zack Snyder's Justice League and even Joss Whedon's Justice League. There's things I like about Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Mhm.
I like the movie Man of Steel. We talked about that
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
did our Superman trailer review. But they're all movies that do have some pretty glaring flaws. I even like Superman Returns.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and knowing that that was the case, I think I was like looking for the flaws. I was like, well, surely there's got to be
Yeah.
some major
Yeah.
flaws here because this character just seems so hard to adapt for most directors. And coming back to it the second time, I was like, boy, I really think you kind of just hit a home run here. I think you just nailed it. I just think you got the right idea for everybody. And you're so right about Corn Sweat that like
Mhm.
the thing about Cavill is that movie and those movies kind of just try to make Superman and Clark Kent like a cool hunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Cavill's just sort of like this smoldering cool guy who's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And there's imagery of Henry Cavill in the suit and as Clark that works on an
Mhm.
image level. But David Corenswet, his performance is so spot on and he and James Gunn talked about this thing that I think is where they're really getting this movie right. Again, and this is all spoiler free. This is just about the tone and the
Mhm.
approach. And what they talked about, David Cordswet said this in interviews, and I've heard James Gunn talk about this in interviews too, that he's like, people are always trying to figure out the balance between Clark Kent and Superman
Mhm.
and how much of each bleeds into the other and what are the different, and he's like, and there's this third character that I don't think people talk about a lot, which is both. That it's like, it's
Mhm.
the guy that he is when he's with Lois Lane. It's the guy that he is when he's with his parents. It's the guy that he is when he's with his friends who know
Right.
who he is.
Right.
And that's actually the truth of the character is he's
Mhm.
both.
Mhm.
And I see that so much in Corn Sweat's performance
Yeah.
that he's both this kind of like wholesome, geeky, kind of dorky, aw shucks kid from a farm in Kansas.
Yeah.
And he's also this really confident, really strong, really impressive
Mhm.
person, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. It's yeah, I have to, I mean, I'll have to see this movie again and see that because I'm definitely in the camp of it's not perfect. There's flaws, but I still really enjoyed it. But I don't know, should we get into spoilers?
absolutely, we should.
Do it.
So that's it for our spoiler free review. Check out the full review if you want to hear more. And here we go.